You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
Okay. Hello and welcome back to the Integration Station. I'm Naturally Ashley, your host, here with a special guest. This is Justin McCarthy we've got here today. And Justin is a Kambo practitioner. I was inspired to have him on because I just recently, in the beginning of spring, around that equinox time, had a wonderful ceremony with Cindy that came from the East Coast and Steve that came from the West Coast, and they both met me here in Ontario. And Cindy had been looking everywhere for a Kambo practitioner. It wasn't until this ceremony that she actually met one in her own hometown. So as soon as I heard about this guy, I'm like, we got to have him on. We got to connect. I want to hear all about what he's doing. There's not too many people bringing this amazing medicine from the Amazon into these parts of Canada. There's not a lot of people talking about this medicine, but Justin's taken it a step further as well, helping guide through breath work, many different types of breath work. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Also his work facilitating men through shadow work and other modalities too. So without further ado, let's just bring him on the show and I can introduce him to you. Hi, Justin.
Hi, how are you, Ashley?
Oh, I'm doing well. Thank you. So excited to have you here. Pick your brain about like all the stuff that you're doing now. But most importantly, I'd really love to start with what brought you here? Who are you? Tell me everything.
Yeah. Well, back in June 1986, I birthed into this world through a Cenarian section with my mom. And this new soul and just blossomed here to be me today. That was the beginning. So let's fast forward to the Kambo journey. I was on my own journey, my own personal kind of darkness and in the depths of everything where I was. And it was really interesting to go through all the Western medicine, the pharmaceuticals, the talk therapy. I was getting a lot of help. Fortunately, I'm a military veteran, so I had a lot of help that way. So I didn't have to pay for it, and I had really good exposure and access to help. So that was very important to me to have that, and it really worked for the beginning because I didn't know what was going on. So it kind of highlighted a few things. But over time, within about 6 months to a year, I wasn't really seeing any results anymore. I kind of plateaued really fast just because of that optimism of trying to help myself. So I looked at plant medicine, plant and animal medicine, and I was drawn to Peru to go down and work with ayahuasca and other psychedelics as well, whether it's microdosing with psilocybin or doing more of a hero's dose to really break through this psyche and this place I was at. So once I went down to Peru on a men's retreat, this was about masculinity and medicine coupled together. I dove into men's work and for my own personal wants and needs. And when I had discovered this and being around a brotherhood of men that were collectively open to being vulnerable, speaking about the issues at hand for ourselves and other men around us, and the things we weren't really allowed to speak about and talk about through our upbringing and our conditioning, that it changed everything kind of there. And then I was introduced to Kambo. So that was the first time that I did Kambo, was in Peru with a facilitator. And then once I did it, I started finding out the benefits after, both personally and in the theory behind it. And I was blown away by this medicine, by this frog. So it really opened up a lot of things that I knew people back in Atlantic Canada could use this. And I want it to be back in Canada. I didn't just want to go on a hiatus and move off to Costa Rica or move off to Peru and just stay there away from my home. So I decided to start tooling my tool bag to come back and have this. And it was all the stuff that I was using in my practice, like breath work. And then I looked at the medicine that helped me, and I wanted to bring it to help other people. So I loaded up my tool bag with things like breath work, yoga practices, the medicine like Cambo, other psychedelics, and advising people on these, as well as men's work, and diving into this beautiful thing that we have to be able to help men kind of come out of the shells and out of this isolation that we've been for so long. And medicine and Cambo helps that.
Yeah, I love that integration piece of like masculinity and the medicine. I'm curious if you're like seeing, like what kind of men are you finding that are, being called to doing this work right now?
It's definitely desperation. So there's a point where enough is enough, and people really, the men are really wanting a wholehearted connection. And when you couple that with the medicine and allow this, the traumas, whether it was past or the things they're going through currently with relationships, marriage, these types of things, their children even, they're ready for something different, because what they have isn't working, or the way that they've been, whether it's with alcohol, smoking, marijuana even, it isn't working anymore. And just going out with the guys, have a beer at the pub and not really talk about your issues. They want to open up and talk. So as soon as they have safe space to do it and that container to open up, it's like everything just comes out. So the type of men are ready. And there is a whole nother side, and it makes me realize I'm doing the right work, because there's a lot of resistance on this other side. And where people are coming out, men, not women. Women love this. and men come out and they belittle at me. They call me out and they're like, "Oh, you're a feely guy and you're talking bullshit." And they just go really out in left field. And I'm like, God, that man is hurting inside. He's really suppressing something there, and I feel for him. And I have a lot of empathy for those people that really come at me. But the people that are coming to this work and coming forward and contacting me and some of the people I'm collaborating with, it's been a different world for sure.
There's always that duality, right? Like this one of teachings of yoga in general. What happens on one side replicates on the other,
Oh yeah.
So there is like always that, but your choice of language is very impactful. There's ready or there's resistance. What would you give to somebody who's feeling the resistance but wants to be ready?
To feel into it. That's a big one. And to really ask the questions like you just did, to say, is what you're doing right now working for you? Are you okay with how you are? And are the people around you reflecting that you seem and look okay in this world? And most times that's the crack in the armor, is these simple questions, to have a bit of reflection on themselves, a little bit of insight to come into their own life. And you see a lot of breakdowns. You see people really open up, and this is the first moment they've been able to share something openly with another man, because many men can speak to their wives or their sisters or to their mothers about these issues, but to speak to a man about this issue is something that we haven't really been given the opportunity to do. So I love opening up that space for men, and to open up to say that they say, well, why would I need this? Well, what is it that you have, or what is it you're doing? And then I just ask them simple questions to really open that up for them.
There's two fears that we're born with, right? There's like the fear of falling, like to protect ourselves from falling, because it could mean death, and also loud noises, because if there was a predator coming, we'd need to know to go hide. That fear would actually serve us. But when you ask people today, what is it that you're most scared of? You ask a woman, and it's going to be like dominated by a man. And if you ask a man today, or dominated and killed by a man, but you ask a man today, what's their biggest fear? It's the same thing. Dominated and killed by a man. Like, it makes sense for men to not want to be vulnerable, but there is a freedom that comes from that vulnerability. I think that's one of the things that a lot of this medicine work might be bringing to the forefront too, is that, you know, that's where that strength is. That's where that warrior resides, is in facing the fear and doing it anyway, and realizing that there's nothing really to be scared of. In fact, like, when you feel into that resistance or into that fear, the fear actually moves further away.
Yeah, and that's that's what people, this pushing, we're all pursuing, we're pushing towards, even if they're very masculine and pursuing career for desires and their passions. And so we were pushing really hard into what we're doing, and sometimes for good reason. But I tell people, when they get to that point where it's like they feel that resistance, just go 4% more. You don't have to burn out at 100, just 95, 4% more, lean into it. And when you break through, you realize that this is what's holding you back. This is a barrier, which we think is, I want to be dominated by a man. I don't want to be dominated and killed by another man. In common, we are at that point. We're so safe and so comfortable in our society today that you can push past that visceral fear that you have, that little bit of anxiety, and just move into it a little bit. Just lean in a little bit. And every time you do that, you start to train the mind that it's okay to kind of discomfort.
Yeah. You say it, you have such a reassuring tone too. It's okay.
Thing is, okay. Me put it like my is that I'm always safe. So whether that's a psychedelic journey, a very heavy, it's like unknown country, an unknown place, and I know I have a lot to know I can be safe, but there isn't much that stops me with, and there's very little today that stops me, because I truly believe I'm in the hands of the creator, of source, and I'm a part of this energy that's here. So for me, I stand in that firmly. I embody that, and I hope that I do believe that it comes off to other people, especially men, to see like, well, fuck, if just do it, then I do it too. And I'm like, yes, you can. And I really try to help men to say, let's do it together. Like, I'm here. Like, we don't have to do this anymore. Let's go.
You had some great quotes when I was reading your bio and everything that you sent me prior to the show. You're talking about like life is meant to be lived. You know, this seems like a good example of that, but I'm curious if you could dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, so I look at the two ways that the two ways I look at life. So life is a full model, and we live it from the time we're born till the time we die. And then there's two ways to live through life. It's through theory and knowledge. So this is like education, academics. We've been really constructed from kindergarten all the way through university or trade school, is continuing to learn through theory. The other side is spirit. And I've found out through my own lived experience that you cannot actually gain wisdom, which is the thing that we really need in our society. Our elders, our life, our own life, have this wisdom and this other side. It's through lived experience. Now, that lived experience could be traumatic, but when you can objectively look back upon your life and your past, and you've healed through it or from it, then you're able to look at that with wisdom and objectivity. And that wisdom, it's a knowing. It's a deep-rooted feeling within you, is that you just know you're connected to something that you've gone through, that you've been through. And then when someone else has done, that connection that you forged together is humble, because you can just know at that point, instead of the theory side of I learned something from a book, you learned from something from the book, is psychologically like the other knowing is it's a
So is this like, what would you say to that, I guess, suggestive saying that goes around about theory versus practice, or practice versus theory? Like, where do the two become one?
well, if we take if I'm understanding your definition of theory first, would be the same as what I just spoke. Theory, like you learn something, like you read the Yoga Sutras.
Yeah.
But then when you embody and you practice the Yoga Sutras, that's the difference.
It's much harder, and sometimes people use that saying to kind of get out of it. Oh, well, theory versus practice. You can know all you know, but are you doing it? You know, it's like,
yeah.
I've been hearing it quite a bit. Not in myself, but just it's coming up.
Yeah. So the parallel saying for that is walk, talk, talk. So if you talk the talk, it's knowledge. It's just something you've read in a book. It's something you've learned. It's something you've heard from somebody, and you're just regurgitating or mimicking or imitating that. And then when you walk the walk, you're in the practice. So that is actually opus is. So opus is Latin for work. So I tell people that we come in and use the tools that I have and the practice that I give them, like breath work. And then you take these practices of mindfulness, like meditation, and you implement them in a real life scenario. So when you're home with your wife, with your kids, you're at work with your coworkers, or you're in traffic. And if you're not being mindful in those situations, then you're just talking the talk and not walking the walk. So that is the work that we do. The opus that in our life is when we're in our everyday life, our everyday scenarios and situations, and we're being mindful of our practices being implemented in the experience of life.
So it's really just about the one step in front of the other. Just continue going. If it's in alignment with what it is that you're saying, then like that's the way you need to do. And that could also help in determining like decisions, because all life is just set of decisions. But if you keep making the same decision to continue doing the work, continue doing it, if it's hard, that alignment is essentially the work and what brings results, which is, you know, a beautiful step-by-step that anybody could do. You know, this is why setting those goals is still a value.
It is, and there's something to shoot for. So there's aim when you go and you have this kind of direction, you have this purpose seeking to place, the essential of man's search for meaning, and I mean men as in humankind.
Great book.
And so Viktor Frankl's Search for Meaning, it puts that right there. It's seeking a journey. So there's so many sayings, there's so many taboo or kind of cliche sayings out there, but they're so true. Yeah. And they really have merit, but we've watered them down. Yeah, we've watered them down, right?
Yeah. So what are some other examples? Like, I want to dig into like what the actual work is, like the pranayama and all that after a break. But to just like briefly overview what some examples have been on your own journey or what you're working with clients through, could you just give us like a point by point?
Yeah, so thing I really constructed when I put it all together. So I used everything in my tool bag plus other stuff from my own personal journey. And then I selected a few out and constructed this kind of model that I wanted to offer to people. Quite often people don't have a lot of time and they don't have a 7 to 10 days to take on retreat. Even though people go on all-inclusives for a week, they won't take time for themselves personally to find growth. And this is changing. People are coming on to this. So I knew people would do weekends or long weekends. So to have 3 days, 3 different things. And I always do things in threes. So the first one is reset that nervous system, find stability through breath work like pranayama. And then we go into the medicine to purify and cleanse the body. This is with Sananga, Rapé, and with Kambo. And then it's the rebirth or the wake up, the awakening. And this is through holotropic breath work. But if people can't surrender into that breath work to go into that altered state of consciousness, then I work with a psychedelic therapy that would be on the 3rd day, that people have that full breakthrough at that time.
That's beautiful. Is it the same psychedelic each time, or do you is it what you feel intuitively at the time for the people on retreat with you?
I work with with the synthetic of Bufo. And so I hold the space, the ceremony. It's always served one-on-one, and it's in a step fashion. So I do 1, 2, 3 steps as well with that one, and it's about 3 to 4 hours the ceremony.
Okay, and that's considerable amount of time, considering the experience itself is quite short. But your ceremony, doing 3 of them in that amount of time, gives time for integration and things like that as well.
Yeah, so there's a start of it. The start of it is, and that's the first night, the sacred circle, where we have a circle and we really talk about what intention is, and then we write out intentions so we can reflect on it at the end. And then going into integration, this is one of those ones that's watered down and just thrown out. And everybody's like, oh yeah, just go integrate or go with nature. Mm-hmm. I have an integration like protocol where I actually leave people with somewhat of a homework that they know there's a direction and an aim when they leave. And this is for the men's work that me and another gentleman is putting off currently, and we're constructing all the format. So when that person leaves, they really have something to leave with, something tangible, which is personal and subjective to their own life. So that having that integration at the end, as your station is the integration station, it's so pivotal, because that experience is just it just becomes another little experience that you're having. It kind of becomes a wash or something you forget over time. But if you really implant that into that knowingness that you have inside, it lasts so much longer, if not a lifetime.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it does last a lifetime. You know, for some, all it takes is like one experience, and they're good for 20 years. For others, they get a dive into the medicine, and they're like, oh, I want to dive into every medicine. What else is there for me to know? You know, it's different strokes for different folks, I guess. And it's great to honor that. It is part of that duality as well. Yeah, thank you for touching on this. Integration is so close to my heart too. It's where the actual work is to be done. Experiences, you know, they can be great at showing you what work is yours to do, but it's the integration where you do it and you hold on to that. It's where actually the transformation takes place. It's where
exactly.
Yeah, it's like the medicine, kind of when it's becoming part of our body, because we are what we eat or what we consume in any shape or form, right? It's like that is the alchemy, but the transformation doesn't come from stirring the soup. It's like from what comes like after, you know, you eat the soup or consume the soup, and then you go about your regular life a different person. It's really nice to have this step by step. I really want to take a second and honor your second step as well, which is on that second day where there's a cleanse before that real big breakthrough, right? Whether it's with the medicine or holotropic breath work, working with those medicines, Sananga, Rapé, Cambo. You're still on that 3, which I really love and appreciate. I do that too. But they are all cleansing. I'd love to get your point of view on that and why it is that you've decided to do this.
The reason why I picked those 3, as they're quite often coupled together, most Cambo practitioners usually couple those in the training that you do with Cambo, especially in the jungle, they're there, and it's all kind of wrapped together as a kind of a package sort of thing. So the reason why I ended up picking them or sticking with the 3 is the grounding effect and the nervous system connection. So one of the tags that I say, like one of the statements is for, especially for men, is can you become comfortable with being uncomfortable? And if you take Sananga eye drops, you take also Rapé, you take Cambo, it's an uncomfortable session. It's something that doesn't bring joy and happiness like a psychedelic, or can. That can be hard too.
It's warrior medicine.
It truly is. It truly is. It's a hunter's medicine in the Metis tribe, in their lineage, and it's about going into that hard kind of reset. And so when you go into that, and then I use cold plunge as well as another one, and it's can you sit in comfort as the body and the mind is going crazy. The body says, I have all these sensations, I need to get to safety. And the mind says, I need to get out of here, fight, flight, freeze. And it goes into this side of the nervous system that creates these chemicals. We're in such a high stimulated kind of environment all the time through our screens, television, phones, whatever it is. And we're always being inundated with stimulation. So can you sit in life's stimulation and feel the feelings inside, but not have to have fight, flight, or freeze response? And so when you're sitting as the masculine body, and you're sitting in front of your partner or your mother, and they're going off on you or triggering you, can you sit with that discomfort when it's unknown that it's going to come to you? Because that's the way life is. It just hands you these situations. So whether it's cold plunge or these medicines, this is a way to work with your nervous system and these feelings and thoughts inside in a controlled environment, where then that practice can be implemented when you're actually just thrown this random thing in front of you. And then you get to practice. That's the test. And you get to implement what you've been practicing.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, I can, a story came to mind there, something that just happened recently. We have my son and I a big trip coming up, and my mom decided out of nowhere that we had like some family traumas, and she wanted to have her own trip before we go, where she could kind of integrate life and integrate the grief and integrate everything. And she finally felt like she was ready for mushrooms. However, there wasn't enough time. There wasn't, it really, even though she felt ready in that way, it really didn't fit with everything else that was going on at the time. So I presented to her love medicine, DMT, because it can be quick. We could go be out in nature. It's not going to be like, you know, some 6-hour adventure where she'd be self-conscious or anything. We could find somewhere discreet for that amount of time and embody in nature. And it was a really big deal, and something that I think she's going to hold with her for the rest of her life, because she was able to see what power was already there, you know, get a feeling of that love. Now, I would love to see her go through in a particular order, like what you're presenting there with the cleansing ahead of time, because I do believe that that's part of it. But at least there's been that glimpse into what or that remembering, because I think that's part of it too. No matter which medicine you choose, there's this remembering, you know, because we are what we eat. So again, if this is what we're choosing to consume, it becomes a part of us, and it's so ancient and so, you know, beyond us, that there becomes this remembering and almost like humility too, right? That like these things that we thought were like such a big deal are actually okay. And these things that we used to like push aside and just be like, oh, well, it's nothing that I get to like see spirit or whatever, Now it becomes everything. Now it's like, wow, that is real. That is a remembering. Like this exists. This love is here. This, but I like your 3-step process. I'm sorry I drifted there.
No problem. And I totally agree. And there's different ways to do this. This is just the way that I've constructed it. And very much so when I do work with people, sometimes that's in flux. So one step might get like more attention and another step might get dropped. So it's all about feeling intuitively into what that person needs. So like at the time frame for your mom, for that example, that was perfect, right? She don't have the whole long weekend to pack that all in there and then integrate it after. Is that she needed something that was a little bit more her style at that time. And then, like you said, start to remember. And then it was actually nice that she got this little tidbit that was gentle, friendly. It was like a good handshake. It was familiar. Yes. And now she can go into something with a little bit more ease and less anxiety. Because to tell someone to go do 6 grams of mushrooms is like, like really blows people up.
Yeah, it's true. But I love what you said about familiar. That's so important.
Hi.
Yeah, here she is.
Yes. All right. I'm just coming in because as the producer today, I have to tell you guys this is a great place to stop. If you'd like, I may join you after the show or after our break, a word from our sponsors, and we can have a little bit of talk about the actual experience. If
are you good with that, Justin?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to cut us out. We're just going to cut to break, and we'll be back in less than 3 minutes.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
In February of 2022, the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club and Ted Smith were fined $6.5 million. This for helping 8,500 patients with access to medical cannabis. In our interview with Ted, he spoke to us about how people can donate to help in an upcoming court challenge. And here is part of that interview. From what I've seen lately, I believe that you've got something that you're trying to do as far as fundraising to deal with this next court challenge.
For now, people can write checks directly to Jack Lloyd Law Corporation or send e-transfers to save the VCBC at gmail.com. I guess those are the 2 easiest ways for people to help right now.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hi there, and we're back. We're also airing on cbgtv.com, so you can find us on any of your smart TVs as well.
Yeah, the Roku's.
And yeah, there's a whole list. You can find us in most of the podcasts because most of our shows are transferred over into audio podcasts as well as the video casts, and we go out on most of the smart TVs through CBG TV.
Sweet.
So any streaming device you have, look us up, cbgtv.com. So that being said, I'm Green Irene, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Justin. I'm Ashley Vibes' mother.
And producer.
Yeah.
Yes, and producer.
Well, producer is new.
Yeah.
Because that was Al until CBG TV was created.
Well, actually, Pace Radio Network is who hosts where you are. Integration Station is a show, a production done for Pace Radio Network. And Pace Radio Network is one of a group of cannabis broadcasting persons that joined together and created CBG TV, which afforded us the video expression for live streaming and that sort of thing. So most of our hosts are familiar with this board, and with Ashley's new experience coming up, she is learning to run the board herself, and that's why I'm here producing today, because you're on your own after this.
Yeah, because I started out, I was just like in our network, and the mushrooms told me to do it. They're like, with all the censorship, they said find something decentralized and just get everybody who's doing this together. So I did that, and then I realized I was having all these amazing conversations, but they were still too scared to talk to each other. So then I started interviewing each of the businesses for about 30 minutes so that they could share what they're doing with everybody else in network. And then when Pace picked me up, they asked for an hour, then an hour and a half. Then I actually had that producer on, Al, and he's like, I thought the show was 2 hours. I'm like, no, and I'm not doing 2 hours. I'm sorry.
And that's the thing.
But it's great.
You probably find it as well, Justin, being in the industry, like being in literally the health care capacity where you're giving care up for people's health. As Green Irene, I do help you, but I focus primarily on cannabis, hypnosis, and neurolinguistic programming. So I was catching in the background, your conversation. I love a lot of the language that you use. It's very empowering. And I think that's part of what aids in the development of any of your clients that come to you. In addition to that, the fact that it is all male-based, male empowerment is so important today. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not the rah-rah feminist, but I do believe in equality. I also believe that with equality, there is still a lot of differentiation. We are biologically wired differently, and we filter information differently accordingly. And I think finding that bonding in your own kind is essential. Women have always held on to this right from native roots on up. In that, we have our empowering women's circles. We have our, from a native perspective, an Aboriginal First Nations perspective, or Métis perspective. Traditionally, there are men's groups as well, and the women do not get involved in the men's drumming circle. The women or the kind man programs, then men don't get involved in the women's,
women.
Yes, we stay very separate, and it's wonderful to hear that you are empowering. And I love the questions that you ask. They are, they're right on key in that they are effectual. They are effectual.
Yeah. Yeah, share your experience, because like my mom is the type that was like really scared. She hated cannabis for a long time. She's been advocating for it for 10 years now, but in the beginning she was so scared she wouldn't touch it. To her that was like meth or crack, and her brain would be scrambled. And slowly but surely she got into cannabis, got herself off of pharmaceuticals. Now she felt ready for mushrooms, but DMT is what she was working with. So, and continuing to.
Yes. Oh, so you really summed that up pretty well. Previous to my illness, I was very against the consumption of cannabis in any way, shape, or form, and have published articles against legalization, against consumption, and total pro public service announcement, right? I was educated by the television, much like everybody else, those public service announcements. This is your brain on drugs, and a little frying pan there. However, illness, I wound up getting very, very ill. And after 2 years, really struggling, not having any answers, one thing led to another. I stopped by my brother's home and I said, that's it. No, you know what? I'm just going to, these are the prescriptions they gave me. Well, if you're going to do that, just trust me, try cannabis, because he had been using it for years. Well, it stopped the next spasm mid-track. And it was like, wow, this is like a miracle weed, right? This is wonderful. At that point in time, it was still illegal. But so for most of my illness, I only smoked it until towards the end of 10 years, at which time I was then having it infused in my diet. I had it impregnated in cloths, muslin wraps for legs for the restless leg syndrome that is associated. I used it in my teas in a multiplicity of ways. I used it in every way, shape, or form. And then when I switched all the pharmaceuticals and one day shot, shortly thereafter, the only thing I continued to consume was the cannabis. And so to me, this was a miracle wonder weed. And I couldn't wait to tell the doctor that I had discovered the cure. I was convinced that I was the only one on the planet that knew that cannabis was good for you. You can imagine my surprise, and especially by his assaultive nature towards the naturalness of it. He was so angry and despondent. And so I thought at that point, fine, you know what, if it's like this with cannabis, then I had to learn more. And I did. And my nose went in the books and into every research paper I could find. I am totally a book nerd and love it. But I learned everything I could and became the pot preacher, of Venetang. So that being said, when I started going through this grieving period, as Ashley said, I've lost 5 very important people since the beginning of February, all different means and different capacities. It was very overwhelming. I also am obviously at that middle-aged where you're going, wow, these chapters are over. Did I make plans for the next chapter? Which I admittedly did not, because I was in a hospital bed saying goodbye to my family for 10 years, where I knew that I was not going to see a tomorrow. I learned how not to dream about tomorrows because I wasn't going to see one. And then I lived. So that was a shocker. And it's like, wow. So a lot of people say, if I could do it all over again, knowing what I know now, well, knowing what I know now, I still don't know what to do yet. So I've been looking at different things to battle some of the challenges that I've experienced or faced. Mushrooms was something that I've been introduced to with blue honey for microdosing, especially during winter months. I find I really am challenged with the seasonally affected depression. And I recognize it now. I mean, I've cataloged it for enough years that, yep, that's what it is. So it's self-diagnosed, but definitely diagnosed. And moving on from there. So talking to Ashley, I said, you know what? I think through all of this, I just need to release. And what do you say about a hero dose of mushrooms? I don't think that's the plan, she said.
And she's so scared of Cambo, which is a good detox. Like, I think it would really help with that ancestral travel work through the body cell. Yeah. But it's still too scary. So DMT is so opening and welcoming.
And it's not just an ancestral thing. So here was my experience with DMT. Ashley introduced it to me in smoke. I smoke obviously a lot of cannabis, and so we added it that way for a slow introduction, and then she gave me the vape. The experience was very euphoric, to say the very least. It was very, I want to say, freeing. However, as I said to Ashley, keeping in mind that I have been dead and brought back several times in my lifetime. I have, since early, before a year old.
Can I interrupt you first? Sorry. Can I interrupt you? Can I help you change that story? You've been reborn several times in your lifetime.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So that being said, and where I was, thank you, where I was coming to with that is the comeback from each of those times has had that same euphoria. And so a traumatic period in time, in my early teen years or developmental years, I used that tool in a very mental capacity, in a very absorbed, which I have later learned because now my studies and my conditioning and so on and so forth. But by natural reflex, I will achieve those states. What I genuinely loved and appreciated about the DMT is the ability to get there without having to go through a trauma, so without having to do it naturally, and without having to reach those levels through a meditative or self-hypnotic state.
Which can sometimes take a long time if you're stressed out or if you want it too badly.
Correct.
Yes,
Correct.
exactly. So when I talk about holotropic breath work and I say that it's okay if you can't release within this technique, within this practice, because then the DMT is going to do it for you. And so don't worry so much. Don't hold on to this kind of like this worthiness or thinking that you did something wrong, this guilt that people have as core wounds. So when you do something like a practice, whether it's mindfulness, meditation, or breath work, and you're trying, or hypnosis, and you're trying to get there, and it does take a lot of practice to get to these places of these revelations. Well, that's what we have the exogenous forms for, like the mushroom or like 5-MeO. And we're able to use these, or ayahuasca, which is 5-NN-DMT. And then, so any of these DMT analogs we can use. And so you don't have to go, like you said, through a traumatic experience.
Right. And yes, so in that respect, I mean, I've learned I've grown a greater appreciation for a lot of the psychedelics that are out there, just because of my personal experiences with the cannabis and the prohibition and the bastardization of its health and wellness capacities. That being said, DMT is certainly something what we've been working with, or what you started me with, is something I will continue with. Now, I love the idea of integrating the different modalities as well. Now, I as I was listening to your modalities, they include physical modalities. Do you get into anything such as diet or exercise beyond the breath work? Or
personally, yes. Do I educate people on those things? Definitely not. We touch on it, we talk about it, the importance of it. But I would definitely recommend people to go to a holistic nutritionist and to go down that route to find out what works for them, because we do have these different body types and lineage and ancestry where we come from, whether that's from Scandinavia or more Central and South America. And we have these enzymes within us that processes the foods that we have today that everybody has. We have the standard food system, and everybody processes these foods, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, in different ways and different capacities. And that's why you see some people really successful with the carnivore diet, and then some people are really good with the vegan diet. And those people can't cross paths. Like, they can't eat the opposite effect. And because their bodies would just like explode really inside of them. And so I help educate these things that I know personally with people, but I don't offer so much like a workshop, let's say, or something within the retreat.
Okay. But you from personal experience, you're able to at least give some direction in that, you know what, we're all different. And some of us have Pitta bodies, some of us have Vita, some of us are, I think I'm referring to Deepak Chopra. Ayurveda. Yeah. So we all have these different body types and these different mechanisms. We all run different programs with different filtration systems. And so finding the right thing to work for you.
And we're always changing, right? Like, one diet that works for somebody when they're a kid isn't going to work when they're older. Like, part of our intake form is asking, what did you eat when you were young? What do you eat now? What were your parents' health like?
And a very evident and a very evident change throughout that lifetime is for females. When females go through menopause, everything changes. Their hair texture, their color, their body, their skin, the way they process food. Like it's, and I only know this through knowledge. Yeah, so it's, I know through knowledge. This is my theory. And I've also experientially witnessed it, but I've never felt it.
Yeah. She's a quite unique woman too. Like she, experiencing menopause most of her life, she mainly identified with more of like masculine character type, if anything. So,
yes, at a very young age, I was also put in the role very early.
Yeah.
Of being,
I think that's why she connected with you to come on today. It's like,
well, and again, it was just whether or not it was my place, and I have my own things that I'm taking care of also.
It's always nice.
But yes, and it is. Growing up, I was in a very different hormonal place than most of my peers, and so I tended to chum more with the male counterparts, my brothers, and as such, I really got a different perspective than that of the female perspective, because I'd hear them, what does she want from me? Like, fuck, just say it. Men think very linear. Women, they don't even get the first, right? And it's like, and honestly, I have a great appreciation for the male perspective for this very reason. It's like, there's the job, get it done. But that goes back to caveman days. Women were giving birth and they had the vulnerable. They looked after the vulnerable, the children, the spawn, and they took care of that nest while the men had to maintain that series. They couldn't be thinking about anything else. They got to go out and kill a beast 10 times their size. They got a stick and a stone. Good luck, mister. You better be focused, right?
These medicines were great assets for those men back then.
Absolutely. And to see that being brought back into societies, and if you listen to any of the prophecies, you listen to the Hopi prophecy, you listen to the Navajo prophecy, you listen to the Ojibwe, the Cree, the Métis, the Mi'kmaq, you listen to any of these First or Six Nations prophecies, the old traditional stories, they speak of these times when the rainbow children, and I think rainbow children is so cute because I don't think it has anything to do with pride or anything like that. I think it has to do with the migration of so many nationalities.
Yeah, we're so diverse now.
A true blood of any nationality, I think we'd be hard pressed to find a populace of that. And because we've migrated. So, and in these times, they will learn of the old medicines again. They will speak of the old ways and the ways in which they work with Mother Earth, where Mother Earth is, you don't own this land. You cannot own a living thing. You just can't. And
they try.
Earth is, there was an old saying, an old native said, somebody came to give him money for his land. And he says, lay it all out there on my field. And he says, well, it'll blow away. Oh, well, my land won't blow away. So your your money's no good. I don't want that. And the other person says to him, yeah, but my money can buy you other things. He says, okay, well, hold on. And he goes and he gets this pot made of clay and he takes it and he tosses it in the ashes of the fire. And he takes the pot back out. He says, can you throw your money in there now? Like from the clay. The pot was made from clay of the earth. And he says, no, my money will burn. So my land is still better than your money. Why do you want to give me your money? It's no good. You keep it. It wouldn't wash in the creek. There's all these stories that go with it. And here's the thing, and that's because the bottom line, Mother Earth will always serve us, and she serves us what we need. When the natives needed rice, when they needed food, they found it growing on the water. When we need medicine, we fall in a patch of mushrooms.
Most of the time it grows in their backyard. Like, it drives me so nuts when I see people with big bellies and like a case of empties outside and they're picking up dandelions out of their lawn. I'm like, that dandelion, that is what's going to get rid of your gut. That dandelion, that's what's going to help your liver recover. Women with hormonal issues, and they're like, oh, I just want a green grass, and they're out there mowing it, and I'm like, that's all clover. You don't have to mow that. That's your hormone medicine. Like, come on.
It's about being natural and getting back to natural. And from what I understand, most of the work that you're doing is natural medicine. And I think that's beautiful. And I thank you. I really do. I understand you're on the East Coast.
Yeah, so I'm based out of Halifax in Nova Scotia. I'm from Newfoundland, and I'm pretty much going between the provinces. I have collaborations for retreats and workshops. The men's work that we're starting up, the actual center is in outside of Bucktouche, New Brunswick, and we're gonna really home base from there. And I want to keep my roots here in Nova Scotia to be able to pull the men and the women from Nova Scotia all together. So Atlantic Canada as one hub. That's my mission. That's my vision for Opus, is to create an Atlantic Canada hub of spiritual practitioners and a wellness community that's all thriving together. And we all know one another. So when people come to find this in their life, they have this support there, this wellness and health community that can really help them through it. Because for myself, I had to go find it all on my own. And I didn't really have a lot of people guiding me a number of years ago. So when I kind of changed my perspective on life and had my awakening, I was lost. I was by myself. I didn't know where to go, what to do, where to turn. And so to have this now as like a parallel to our old ways that will just continue to fall and crumble, we now continue to rise with what we're doing. And that I'm a part of that. And I want to prop people up to do that here in Atlantic Canada.
That's wonderful. And, there will be a lot of displaced homes and families, men and women, in the coming days with the fires that are going on there. And I think this type of holistic support is just amazing to be able to be there for them, to help them work through this, to help them help themselves, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. How can people reach you? We've only got a minute or so left here. See, we're going to watch this time here now.
We actually have another 30 minutes.
Oh, you're an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Here I am getting all panicky about the time. That's the producer in me. Yeah. So I guess, and I should have brought us up another sponsor. Unfortunately, we don't have another sponsor. So you guys get to talk for the next half hour.
Yeah, sorry, sponsors. You only get one round today, but that's okay. We get more, Justin, and we have had the pleasure of having you on here too, sharing your experience. We don't do it too often.
Well, thank you for
We're
having
going to
me.
be doing it more often,
Yes.
I guess, with Battle Strategies.
Tune into Battle Strategies Fridays at noon here on the Pace Radio, as well as CBG TV. Because Ashley and I have teamed up to help you create a new battle strategy to cope with whatever you're coping with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a quick 30-minute show, just like an integration tool, or like whatever common issues are coming up that are seem to be consistent, and giving
more
tools.
kind of the surface of the things that are available. So for example, grief. What kind of things can people do for grief? There's things like, hypnosis, there's counseling, and to talk on the different things that we know specifically. For me, again, it's NLP work, a lot of NLP work, a lot of meditation work, and DMT. I mean, I have found DMT to be a very useful tool.
And they could work symbiotically too, NLP and DMT, so long as it's sometimes I notice if I give people tools like RIM or something, which is a kind of NLP mixed with hypnosis, and then they go in and do that work, sometimes they'll traumatize themselves more. And I'm it's all about being nice to yourself. You really have to if you're going back to talk to that inner child or do some of that stuff, make sure you're being nice, not validating all of that, that you're a victim. It's not about validating the victimhood. It's about reassuring them that they're going to make it through it by loving that part,
Yeah, it's a good point, because even the flip side on that is that when they learn the lesson from that example, when they do go back to try to validate, or when they become the victim mentality, when they learn that lesson and they transform past that one sticks really big within them. And so I've been really trying to look at our our journeys individually, and to try not to coddle people too much, is because I can only give them what I give them, and how they take it and receive what I give them is their journey. And as much as I want to give them a perfect cookie cutter model where I see them come in, they transform, and then they leave and they're good, it's not realistic. And it's something I have to take myself as a perfectionist out of that scenario. So when they come in and they get that tool, and I know there's harm reduction for sure, there's harm reduction to make sure we're offering this with a good intention as well as in a good way. And as long as we're doing that, we're offering it in a good way, and we're offering it from our hearts. This is all we can do. And then what they do with the tool that they have and the practice now that they get is up to them. And that's really what has to happen, because we're all on this journey alone, essentially, in the human experience. Even though we're all one, we're still both that duality.
It really does take a little bit. Like, I think that's something that we have to feel into, instead of just like, it's not a straight understanding, it's like a feeling understanding, to like grasp the fact that we are one, but we're also all, and that we're alone, but we're also never alone. It's like every single time we come back to this duality, and to be at peace with that, instead of being angry at the paradox or confused about the paradox. That's a powerful place to be.
I've always found that, and it's been my expression for a long time, but we're all, for a very brief, the universe is nothing but energy, a collision of energy, constant collision of energy, right? I mean, from a scientific perspective, this is what we have. For a very brief period of time, through miraculous intervention or just science that we don't understand yet, who knows, for a very brief period of time, some of that energy, 10 volts of that energy, gets contained into your corporeal form that grows just like a plant, and it grows and it grows and it reaches maturity, and then it decays, because that's a corporeal form. It's not going to, it lives and it dies. That energy cannot be destroyed, just like it cannot be created. So while it's contained in us, how would we not still feel a part of the all of energy, because that energy is constantly moving in and out of us?
Yeah, literally. This is one of the things I just love about breath work as an integration tool, is that breathe in, breathe out, that pranayama, that is the life force energy. And that's how, when somebody passes on from this earth, or from their living body, their energy is still existing, and we get to pick up on those photons through intention and through our breath. It's our breath that allows it to become us, but it's our intention that brings those specific photons. Us being with Uncle Jim, being with Papa in like those last days, that was us bringing on those photons. When we are saying like, oh, we want to bring on like some skills. It was Napoleon Hill that did this. He had his his councilmen every single night. He would visualize these 10 councilmen at his table. It was like JFK, Edison, Ford, like whoever, and he had specific things that he asked from each one of them that to bring forward. Carl Jung did this with his Red Book, where he was talking to this other version of himself, eventually getting in touch with that shadow work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's other ways, like the pranayama is great, like the example, and there's so many other ways that we're also connected is through DNA. Like you have your mother's nose and you have your grandmother's hips, and this gets passed down as well through that generation, through our lineage, through our ancestors, Osinogama. So all of our relations is us, and then if we have offspring, it becomes the next one. And this chain in between our DNA, the chain of DNA, as we're made up and continues to link and change as we kind of co-create, so to speak, we have this beauty that creates something new all the time. Impermanence, as Buddha said it, is the only thing we're guaranteed. Is that this three-dimensional world that we live in, this energy, matter that we are on right now, this plane, is always in flux. It's always changing. And it doesn't get destroyed and it doesn't get made. It's always just contained here. So as I breathe in the oxygen from a tree, it breathes in the carbon dioxide from me. We're one and the same. But the thing is that I have 5 senses and a mind that logically thinks in black and white, that I differentiate myself from being that tree. And if I didn't have these 5 senses, if I was just an amoeba or some kind of single cell organism, I would just be feeling consciously like I'm everything anyway, and I would just be acting. But this acting that I'm doing now, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm separate and together all in one.
It almost brings up like the power we get of being the observer, right? Like this is one of our powers as human, is that we get to observe all those other thoughts in our head. We get to observe like what energy comes in and out. We get to observe our breath. We get to observe that tree, and that tree, as well as our neighbor, as well as that stranger on the sidewalk, or that dog that's peeing on the side of the road. Like, as we're observing, we're learning from every single one of those, and it's all like pieces of the puzzle in some way. Like these are all the things that we're integrating from real life, and like bringing that back to the medicine. I think that there is like actually like breath, this way of using the medicine where it's like the medicine integrates life, and then we cut back to life when we integrate the medicine, and like that's the flow. But it could be any medicine.
Here's the cool thing to get out to any listeners out there that are going through shit and sitting back going, yeah, that all sounds great and all, but it sounds like a lot of fluff and luff, right? Here's the thing. You're running cycles as a human being. You're running cycles anyway. Everything about life is cycles. So if you're running this cycle and you're absolutely freaking miserable and life sucks and you're falling down a tube and you feel like rat crap mentally, physically, emotionally, chances are you're suffering financially and challenged. Yeah. If you're running that cycle. So if you're going to run a silly cycle anyway, why not give the other one the try? Right? Yeah. Right. Why not bounce over to the light cycle and let's run that in reverse? This is nothing I've ever done. I'm a man's man. I've never ever done feeling work. But you know what? And how'd that shit work out for you? Why don't you come give this one right? Get your butt over here. Let's run that in reverse and see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? You spend 3 days doing fluff stuff. You never have to tell anybody.
Yeah. 3 days is a generous amount of time to get some real stuff done, but also not too much that you have to like cancel your whole life, you know? One thing that really came up when you were talking about the cycles was that metaphor that you just shared about the plant, how it goes through its cycle. And I find that so many people, when they get to that death part, you know, they're like, oh, I remember when I had when I was like all blossoming, when, you know, my stem was so strong, but now it can break, you know, all this stuff. But then they're like, they remember that this is what depression is, like that remembering, but then denying where they are, which is like dead, and it sucks. And they're like, I want to hold on to this to get back to that. It's like, first you have to let go, plant those seeds, and like
your grandfather,
you come back up.
So my grandfather's passing was a beautiful passing. Yeah. He really made getting old a beautiful thing, and it is a blessing, not granted to everyone. Yeah. And you know, the aging, as you say, you know, looking backwards is how we become depressed. Looking too much into or trying to make sense of the future that doesn't even exist yet is anxiety. And so much of life and reality and happiness and joyfulness and appreciation and gratitude and health and wellness, mentally, physically, emotionally, is in this now, in this moment right here, and appreciating that. I mean, I, like everybody else, my first gray hair had a total conniption in the mirror. What the hell? But now I look at it, it's like, oh, look, I got a new one. I must have been laughing a lot in the sun last summer. Or, you know, I must have had a blast. Or, you know, it's about the new, because each piece of me is getting more and more experienced. Each part of who I become with every day that passes is a growing new me. Like, I love to watch a dried old flower. Like I love drying like a flower when after it's bloomed and blossomed, and then you protect the leaves and it becomes something else. How beautiful is that for a human to become something else, to move into that next state from youth to old age? It's beautiful.
Yeah, and when you get to that end stage, like especially specifically with flowers, that's one of my favorite parts, because that's when you get the essence. That's where you get your return. That's where that one seed that sprouted turns into like 500
so
seeds that you can scatter everywhere.
So you're not going to like me till I'm really old and gray.
Oh, no.
No, I think, we do. And I think here, especially in Western society, we put too much emphasis on youth. The young are dumb. Okay, I know I was. And the young are.
There's a rap about that, young and dumb.
We're growing, and the older we get, the more, if we afford ourselves those opportunities to not be narrow-minded, to open our eyes, to say, hey, let's try that side. Let's
Does
try.
that mean you're ready to try Campbell?
Absolutely not. You are not getting near me with anything that's going to hurt me. And don't tell me
what would you say
about his heels.
Yeah, what
not
would
if
you
you're
say?
going to burn my skin.
It depends how you look at wounds. So that's a superficial wound. That's your body. Are you your body, or are you the soul that transcends the body? And when you get into that, you recognize that it isn't harm for the body to have that. An injection is a penetration of the skin of that barrier. And we look at all these different ways that we treat the body. So we've just become accustomed to something that we deem as normal, whether it's vaccines or taking medication. Well, when you take medication or an alcohol drink or something, even cigarettes, it hurts your lungs, it hurts your liver, it hurts your kidneys. So internally, we're not seeing the effect. But just because we can see a couple burns on our skin, we deem that as bad. So it's our side of saying what's good or bad that determines that differentiation.
That's very interesting perspective, and thank you. Those are words to contemplate.
Now go meditate.
Yes. And on that note, I will leave you to the end of your show. I've got my timer set again. I've got to go take care of my show. And I shall thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you, Justin. Absolute pleasure. And I'd like to reconnect again. Maybe we'll have you on join us on Battle Strategies in coming days. All right. That's wonderful. Thank you. Please don't forget to leave your contact information, how we reach you, how our viewers and listeners can contact you, and stay in touch. All right. Thank you. I will ding you when it's time to close off, at which time you will say your goodbyes and click this one.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. So much to learn. Tech's definitely not my thing.
No matter how old, even though it's a producer, no matter how old you get, she will always mother you.
Yes. It's okay. I don't mind. I raised myself in the first part of life. I'm pretty grateful for everything that's happened since.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
It all plays a role. And I'm so grateful that she's my mom and that we do have this relationship now. Yeah. I can see that she's doing a lot of healing too. You gave some really good advice. I think she really is going to take it. I didn't know she was going to come on the show like that, but it's saying a lot. The stuff that you're sharing here is like so impactful that it even, it's getting her stubborn mind's attention.
That's the thing. So I've been told that I'm blunt, abrupt, forward, and I like that because I don't want to beat around the bush anymore and be this soft, gentle, and always kind man. I want to be someone that just speaks it as it is, and it's not harmful. And if someone takes what I'm saying as harmful, there's more than likely something going on within them, that there's resistance or something. Because what I say is very objective, and it isn't something to be taken personally. It's a bit of contemplation, like your mom said, and use that word. And it truly is, and it hits and resonates. And that's the thing, is that it's a little bit of a dagger or a hot prick, but it's like it catches the attention of somebody. And that's what I really like, is to turn those ears up and tune in.
Yeah. It's almost like that, the burn of the Cambo too, you know, it gets the attention. It's like, this is real, this is happening, you know, and it's body. It's not like drifting off into these other psychedelic experiences where you're out of body. It's very much understanding this is your body and being able to communicate with it, which isn't with words. It's in these other ways. It's like the organs telling you that smoke's no good, or, you know, it's time to filter a little bit better. You know, this not being able to filter through your liver is now affecting these other parts of your life, and you're not filtering through the drama. You know, it's like it's all so connected. Or the anger, if we're talking about liver, I guess that would be the anger emotion. And that's other work that you're doing too, is through this integration work, getting into that deep shadow work and that deep emotional work. For the next few minutes, can you share a little bit more on that?
Well, you ended up mentioning Carl Jung, and when you dig into his work and go really deep, opening up those shadows, is that when you get to these core wounds, when you get to this place that is really the underpinning of all of the things that we do, whether it's habitual or reactivity, the things we avoid in life, it's all underneath this thing, which is the shadow. And this shadow is a part of us that we've packed away for so long, whether that's childhood trauma, or maybe we've had something happen in our adult life, and we pushed aside of ourselves that we no longer allowed to see the light, to be a part of who we are. And it's actually our underpinning power, because it's the subconscious takes in the shadow light, and it's been watching the whole time without any expectations. So when you shine light on the shadow, it actually becomes the thing that you have that's most powerful in your life, and really complements who you are when you say I am this, or I am something better and something more. So emotional work then is recognizing that everything is rooted within the emotions. Everything we have, from autoimmune disease or any dis-ease within the body that can then turn to disease like cancer through epigenetics, we are able to see that the emotions that we store within the body, as you said, liver, anger, someone that is a functioning or closet alcoholic is suppressing something or trying to achieve more joy than deal with some hard issues in their life. And this could be anger. And then when your body has to function on a physical level to fight things that's going on, it starts to become erratic. And that's where diseases do. So once you're realizing that the emotion that you hold is actually impacting and creating the symptom, which is physical, you start to get to more of the root cause of what's going on and fix the emotion. And then the body just starts to heal itself, because our body, our immunity is natural. It's something that can heal itself.
Yeah, it's what it wants to do. It's what it's made to do. And it can do it all on its own if we can listen and step back.
Yes.
And I think that listening, we're so programmed today, like we've programmed ourselves just as much as culture has, but we enforce that hypnotic rhythm through continuous action, right? Like, so I think one of the benefits of Cambo and Ensenanga and Rapé, that discomfort, it's like that shock, like you were saying, you know, it's like getting that burn or anything. It's like, hello, I'm here, I'm a body. And here's how it is that we can communicate, that when you're feeling this, it actually means this. And when you're seeing this in the real world, it means that there's something going wrong in the body. And here's how we work together. And in fact, I might even stick around for a little while and give you some guidance for a while, because you might need that support. You know, I feel it's so beautiful. It's so welcoming. You know, it just takes it's hard to get through that initial part.
So I stopped your mom and I retold her story. I gave her a new tagline or new storyline, because you talked about conditioning ourselves. And this is what I really try to tell people, is that the way we speak and our perception of something is how it is for us. That's our reality. So when your mom says something like what she said, I had to die several times. When you change that to more of a uplifting and empowering, I was reborn 7 times. The difference between those are very minute, but how your body perceives that, it's like I had to die 7 times. I was reborn 7 times. The chemicals that are released between those two persons are astronomical. And that's actually what your body needs, is this chemical release in a natural way that's positive, loving, it's calm, compassionate. You're able to have dopamine and serotonin. And how many people are on SSRIs and on antidepressants that are suppressing all of this? And it's like, there's a reason why people weren't creating enough serotonin. And myself, I'm one of these people. It's because my lifestyle and my mindset wasn't where it needed to be. And I was creating my own chaos within my body. And that harm is far more than getting a little burn on your skin from Cambo. And that's what I really want people to see, is that this superficialness that we're afraid of, that we've been told, like, don't harm me type thing, my body, my skin, it's actually the harm that we do inside that is far beyond ever this harm that we do on the outside.
You find that it's those people that are more scared
when they're harming their insides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's everybody, and it's funny because I can't lump like some people into boxes and stuff. Like you can do statistics and really put everybody depending on personalities and where they fit. But at the same time, it's literally the human experience and how we've been constructed, our childhood, our parenting, the place we grew up, the faith that we have, that makes who we are in this chaos that we can become. And then once we transmute that alchemy inside of ourselves to recognize this growth path, it becomes something more beautiful. And then you do see the dying flower in a different light, or you see the decay and the death within like a mushroom or our elders. And it's beautiful. It's just as beautiful as a newborn baby when you see someone dying. And I see that all the time with my kind of perspective now, is that I'm like, wow, that person lived 85 years. That's incredible. And look at the laugh lines that they have and the smiles, and their teeth are missing because they ate so many sweets or whatever it was. And I'm like, what an amazing, rich life. Like, it's incredible. And then I see one of my family members look at my perspective of, I'm going to miss them. They're in pain and agony. They're old. I pity them. Oh, I feel bad. I have sympathy. For myself, I look at it as absolute beauty, and it's something, and it hurts inside too. Like, there's all these other feelings, but they're not the ones that are dominant.
Yeah, and that's part of the observer too. It's like acknowledging all these feelings are there. You know, our culture tells us don't feel anything. In fact, I'm going to give you this and this and this so you don't have to feel. But the truth is, as humans, we're going to feel anyway. We feel everything. And it's quite natural to feel 4 emotions at one time. Oftentimes it's more. And if you can't name 4, then there is disharmony in there that needs to be corrected, because that's where freedom comes from. You feel it, you free it. Otherwise, it gets stuck in the body. It'll go find a weakness. Maybe you hurt your knee when you were a kid, and it's like, oh, I'm going to go find that, you know, or, you know, it could even be like aligned with the chakras. Like, oh, you had a broken heart. Now I'm going to go up and I'm going to hold those emotions in the heart. And, you know, it doesn't need to be that way. This medical freedom, this personal freedom, this financial freedom, it comes, I think, from freeing these emotions that get so locked up inside of us, you know, and they're really not that scary. In fact, like, it can be humorous and funny to even love yourself enough to be like, how did I feel this because of this? You know, like, sometimes it's just like really funny to me.
So what's the title of your other show? Battle
Strategies. It's my mom's show, but with everything going on, she wanted I think she needed the motivation to stay in, to be honest. You know, like grieving your loved ones can be like really hard. So to stay inspired, she asked if I'd do it with her. It's a quick little show. I don't know if I'll continue it like long term. But like, it's so great to be at this point of life where we can connect and co-create together. That, you know, it didn't take long for me to say yeah. And then now we're just going into these subjects. Grief's going to be one of them, but we've done quite a few others, and we'll bring some medicine in, but also a lot of it's going to be these integration pieces, because it's most important for life. The medicines are absolutely great. And I think just like medicine and supplementation, like, I mean, medicine, like food being medicine and supplementation and things, these sacred medicines, Amazonian medicines, and even the ones in your backyard are all, you know, working together symbiotically. It's not, it doesn't need to be in boxes, like, as you were saying before. It's about the diversity.
Exactly. And that was a big reason. So while I was in Peru, I really sat with the idea on plant dietas, as well as spoke with the curanderos about ayahuasca being offered and available in Western countries, specifically in Canada. And it's something that I was emotionally a little bit charged about, is that I'm such a passionate person that you go for the authenticity into the jungle to do your ayahuasca. It's like the spirit of the plant is alive in there. You can see the vine literally, and the chacruna leaf, and it's right there. You can pick it. You can see it brewing. You can sit with the people, and it's like there's just something about it. And so I was asking Mother Ayahuasca on one of my day drinks, and I then sat with the curanderos to ask them to see if this was a path that I could go down to potentially bring ayahuasca to Canada, as some people have. And it's just something I couldn't do. So I thought about, okay, so what is it that I can do that's psychedelic? And I was like, mushrooms grow here. I was like, there's everywhere. So many different mushrooms everywhere. And then the other one was coming to terms with the synthetic of DMT and offering the synthetic rather than the Bufo Alvarez. And how I came to that was the idea of energy isn't created nor destroyed. And we are creation, and what we create is at the hands of the creator. So even if it's a derivative or synthetic within a laboratory, it's created through the divinity of the creator. Like, and people during the 60s would have said this about LSD, is that this was like a miracle came out where, and it was like by accident, like all great science. And this is the same thing with 5-MeO synthetic, and it's very controlled. That's the thing I love about it, is that the dosage is so controlled that I know almost every time on point how much I'm giving somebody, and to give them the experience that their body can handle.
Well, on this note, Justin, how can everybody find you if they want to learn more about Bufo, Combo, your other work that you're doing here?
Yeah, so I'm on social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook with Newfound Awakening or Newfound Awakening Opus. I also have just.taken without the D, and that's my personal Instagram. Email is newfoundawakening@gmail.com, and I have a website, newfoundawakening.com.
Thank you so much, Justin. We're definitely going to connect again. It's been a pleasure, honestly.
Thanks.
So much
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net. People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education.